Hi friends, this is Mrs. Rowley with this week's topic of discussion. First of all, welcome back from Christmas break. I hope everyone had a very restful and fun break. And now here we are, back at it until February break. So I hope that I am able to do some geometry with you over the next couple of weeks. I love geometry. It was my favorite subject to teach when I was teaching high school, and it's so much fun. But before we can learn much about geometry, we have to learn about some pretty basic concepts. So I want you to watch this video and learn these building blocks of geometry.
Hi there. Today on Math Antics, we're starting a new subject where we're going to learn the basics of a special kind of math called geometry. Geometry is the study of things like lines, shapes, angles, distances, and things like that. In this video, we're going to focus on three of the most basic elements or parts of geometry. They are points, lines, and planes. All right, we're going to start with points because they're about the simplest thing you can imagine in geometry. What's a point? Well, let me draw some for you. So these are points. They're just little tiny dots in space, but they do a really important job in geometry. They help us describe specific locations in space, like the end of a line, or the corner of a square, or the center of a circle. But they won't really help that much unless we name them, because if I say, hey, look at that point over there, it's kind of hard to tell which one I'm talking about. I mean, they all look the same. So what name should we give these points? Well, let's see. How about Archimedes and Beauregard? That'd be good. Maybe Charlemagne. How about Daphne and Einstein? Let's see. Fred and Guinevere, Hiawatha, and Icarus. Perfect. You know, on second thought, those names are kind of long and complicated. Why don't we just use the first letters of each name instead? There. Now if I say, look at point A, or look at point B, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, let's do that. Let's just talk about point A and point B for a minute. If you start at point A and go to point B taking the shortest distance possible, you would have gone in a straight line. A line is the next most basic element of geometry. We name a line by the points that it goes through. For example, we would call this line AB because its endpoints, where it starts and stops, are points A and B. But technically, this isn't really a line. It's a line segment. What's the difference, you ask? That's a good question. A line segment has a beginning and an end. It starts at one point in space and it ends at another. A line, on the other hand, just keeps on going in either direction forever, just like the number line keeps on going forever. Well, at least we imagine that it goes on forever. We can't actually draw a line that goes on forever, so here's what we do instead. To draw a line instead of a line segment, you just go past the endpoints a little bit, and you put an arrow on both ends of the line to show that it keeps on going. So this is line segment AB, and this is line CD. Now there's one more special type of line that we need to talk about, and it's basically a combination of a line segment and a line. We call it a ray. Rays have beginning points, but no ending points. They just keep on going forever, but only in one direction. So we only put an arrow on the end that keeps going. There. We call this one ray EF. In geometry, each of these three types of lines has a shorthand way of writing it. Instead of writing line segment AB, you can just write AB with a line over the top. And instead of writing line CD, you can write CD with a double arrow line over them, like this. And finally, instead of writing ray EF, you can just write EF with a single arrow line over them, like so. Okay, so now you know about points, and you know that you can form a line between any 2 points. The next thing we're going to learn about is planes. No, not the kind of planes that you fly in. Now, to help you understand how planes in geometry work, let's go back and look at all those points that we had at the beginning of the video. It looks like all the points are the same depth on your computer screen, right? And if they were, we'd say that they're all in the same plane. And that's because your computer screen is a plane. It's a flat surface like a window or a sheet of paper or a tabletop. A plane, or flat surface, is what we call a two-dimensional object because there's two dimensions that you can move in. You can go up and down, or you can go left and right. A line, on the other hand, is a one-dimensional object. If you're on a line, like line AB, there's only one dimension that you can travel in. Sure, you can go forwards or backwards along that line, but it still has only one dimension. You can't get to point C without going off of line AB. But if you're on a plane, a two-dimensional object, then you can get to point C, because point C is on the same plane as points A and B. All three of them are on that flat two-dimensional surface, which is your computer screen. Cool. So that means that if I want to get to point D, I can do that too, because it's on the same plane as A, B, and C, right? All right, I have a confession to make. I tricked you. Point D really isn't in the same plane as the computer screen. It just looks like it from the position you're viewing it from. Watch what happens if I start rotating the screen space a little bit. Aha! Now you can see that the points are actually scattered all over the place in space. Point D is actually in front of the plane that A, B, and C were in, along with some of the other points. And the rest of the points are actually behind the plane that A, B, and C are in. What we have here is a three-dimensional space, or 3D space for short. In a three-dimensional space, there's three dimensions you can move in: left to right, up and down, and in and out. If we're on the plane that contains points A, B, and C, we can't get to point D unless we leave that plane by traveling in that third dimension. A three-dimensional space like this is often called a volume, but we'll talk all about 3D volumes in another video. For now, let's get back to talking about planes. Earlier in the video, we learned that you can make a line by connecting any 2 points, right? Well, in order to make a plane, it turns out that you need to have 3 points. Like our 3 points A, B, and C. If you just connect A and B, you get a line. But if you connect A, B, and C, you get a triangle. Now you're probably thinking, wait, I thought we were supposed to get a plane, not a triangle. Well, because it is a flat surface, a triangle is a lot like a plane, but it has 3 edges. It stops and doesn't keep on going forever. When we were talking about lines, do you remember how a line segment had endpoints, but a true line kept on going forever? Well, it's kind of the same way with triangles and planes. You can think of a triangle as a smaller part or a segment of a plane, but the plane itself keeps on going forever. So 3 points is all it takes to define a plane. And in the space we've been looking at, we already have plane ABC. So let's try making some other planes with the rest of the points. We can choose any 3 points that we want to. Let's join D, E, and F. Now we can see the triangle they form. And if we extend that flat triangle, we can see the plane that it defines. Let's try one more so the rest of the points don't feel left out. Let's join G, H, and I. There. Now they form this triangle, a flat surface that forms this plane if we extend it in every direction. So now you know about planes, lines, and points, 3 basic elements of geometry. There's a lot more geometry ahead in upcoming videos, so stay tuned. And you can check out the exercises for this section. They're pretty easy and they'll help you remember what you've learned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Learn more at Mathantics.
Wow, that was a ton of information to take in. Good job sticking it through and paying attention. I really appreciate that. So I know it was a lot to wrap your head around, but this is what I really want you to understand. Points, lines, and planes are the building blocks of geometry. You can't do anything in geometry without them. The other thing I want you to remember is that points, lines, and planes are really hard concepts because in our 3-dimensional world, it's hard to find them. Points don't have any dimension at all, and lines only have 1 dimension. Planes have only 2 dimensions. So in our 3-dimensional world, it's hard to find things with no dimension or 1 dimension or 2 dimension. But I think you did a really good job. And this is going to be our vocabulary word or a vocabulary definition for this week. What is an exact position often marked by a dot called? It's going to be one of the 3 we just talked about. Write your vocabulary word on the piece of paper that's in the envelope in the folder and turn it back into your teacher. Hopefully, you know what this is called. An exact position, often marked by a dot. Next task. I have given you a state of Maine. a picture of a state of Maine. I didn't give you the state. The state doesn't belong to me, and I can't give it to you. So here's a picture of the state of Maine. What I would like you to do is I would like you to tell me where Rumford is on this map. And I'd like you to mark it with a point. So if you think that Rumford is up in Aroostook County, place a point on your paper where you think it would be located and mark it with the word Rumford. Mrs. Rowley, Rumford's not in Aroostook County. It's got to be somewhere down here. Well, if that's what you think, place a point on your paper and label Rumford. Some of you will know where it is, some of you might not, and that's okay. I'm just curious to know what you think. After you have marked a point and labeled Rumford, then I would like you to find a line segment and highlight it orange. And remember, line segments are straight. It can't be a line because lines extend forever, and we don't have forever on this paper. So find a line segment and mark it orange. Last task, super tricky. I need you to find a plane segment because, again, planes extend forever in each direction. So I just need you to find me a piece of a plane. That's probably going to be hard for you, but talk with your friends. Think about what you learned in the video and think about what you know. Mark the plane segment, how about yellow? How about a yellow highlighter? And when you're done, you can turn it back into the teacher. I hope you found this week's topic of discussion interesting on some level. And next week, we're going to talk about angles. So I'll see you then.